You're listening to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan.
Welcome to Women's Media Center Live. I'm Robin Morgan. And you can imagine how wildly frustrated I was that the last program was already in post-production when the guilty charges, 34 felony counts, every single one, came down from the jury for Donald Trump in New York City. Well, not the time has mellowed me, you understand, but much has happened since then, so we have a lot to catch up on. And there'll be more about this later. My guest this week is Daisy Kahn, the well-known and much-loved Muslim feminist scholar and author, who's here talking about her new book, which is quite remarkable. And there's more, much more, on our favorite Supreme Court couple, Mr. and Mrs. Samuel Alito. But before we get to any of that, and all of it, we need to go inside the headlines. "34 felony counts, and all those 34 guilties. Guilty. It was certainly dramatic, and also inspiring to find justice actually still doing its real work with a 12-person citizen jury, unbought and unbossed. Then it got almost laughable after the later guilty verdict against Hunter Biden, President's sole living son, for possession of a gun while an addict. This had all the Republicans running around in a wild scurry of confusion, this verdict. They so wanted a double-tiered justice system in which they could claim that Trump got unfairly judged while Hunter was crowned ideal son of the year. And when that didn't happen, when, in fact, President Biden, ahead of the verdict, openly declared that he would accept the verdict no matter what, and also that he would not pardon his son if his son were found guilty, well, that sent the Republicans into a tizzy. How could they whine their usual complaint of unfair victimization, shocking and terrible and troubling, when all the signs are pointing the other way? It did make for a lovely pause in the ongoing struggle. Meanwhile, Biden and Trump aside, only 26 countries are led by women, and over a third of UN member states have never had a woman head of state. So it's big news, really big news, that two women, Hala Tómasdóttir in Iceland and Claudia Sheinbaum in Mexico, were elected president this past weekend. Sheinbaum is also the first Jewish person to be elected president of Mexico. Iceland was the first country in the world to democratically elect a woman president in 1980. On Saturday, it elected the second, Hala Tómasdóttir. Before deciding to run for office, she was the CEO of the B Team, a nonprofit working to advance a new model for 21st century business leadership that prioritizes the well-being of people and the planet in the pursuit of profit. She joined the Connected Women Leaders Forum where she was a powerful voice, and when that forum launched Project Dandelion, a global campaign to unlock the potential of women leaders to lead for the actions necessary for a livable future for all, she became a very important ally and advocate. Claudia Sheinbaum, the new president of Mexico, has a very peculiar, rare pedigree. A left-of-center climate scientist with a doctorate in energy engineering. She was mayor of Mexico City. She helped write the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change reports. That's the sweeping, huge UN document that warned the world about the hazards of burning fossil fuels. As mayor, she began electrifying the city's public bus fleet. She set up a huge rooftop solar array on the city's main wholesale market. She expanded bike lanes and so forth, but she's been criticized heavily by environmentalists for backing one of the country's most controversial infrastructure projects, the 1,500-kilometer so-called Maya train cuts across forest and archaeological sites to connect tourist sites like Cancun to rural areas on the Yucatan Peninsula. And she will have to balance numerous and contradictory tests as she takes office. Still, 2 women are probably better than none. Which brings us to, well, Martha Ann Alito and her husband Sammy. They just keep dropping shoes the way we drop jaws watching them. The hubris, the pure arrogance of that couple is something to behold. I assume you know by now that she rambled on while talking to an undercover reporter at a reception for the court, all about how she was going to put up more flags to send us wild-eyed radicals more messages. So it's not a coincidence. It was a definite, direct message. More messages, because otherwise she'd have to look at the gay pride flag across the lagoon from her summer residence the entire summer, and that was a shame and a sin. Meanwhile, Sammy was holding forth about how compromise really isn't such a good thing, and how you need to take strong sides for and against, just the sort of thing we need to hear from an Associate Justice of the United States Supreme Court. Clearly, Roberts isn't hiding. No fool he doesn't want to show his face, and he doesn't want to be trapped about either flags or the money scandals of the Alitos, or for that matter, Clarence Thomas and his wife. I cannot, for the life of me, think why enterprising lawyers don't start impeachment proceedings, particularly since it would appear that everybody's getting impeached for something these days. Demonstrating principles, even if too late to matter much, former Governor of New Jersey, Christie Whitman, retroactively withdrew her decades-old endorsement of and campaign for Alito's nomination to become a justice, because she was finally, just last week, so shocked at his mendacity, corruption, and blatant partiality. Well, good on you, Christie. It's a little bit late. And last, elections for the European Parliament showed far-right parties surging, a strong sign of voter dissatisfaction. Rescuing Viktor Orban, the tyrannical autocrat of Hungary, and challenging democratic leaders in Germany and France in major signs of support for anti-immigrant and nationalist parties. This does not bode well for the United States, and the conditions, in general, are alarmingly similar to those presaging war. Oh, it's a troubled world, all right. And that's not even touching on Gaza. We have to take our first break now, but I'll be back directly with Daisy Kahn. Subscribe to this program on your favorite podcast platform and leave us a review. Follow us on Twitter at WMC Live, like our Facebook page at facebook.com/WMC Live, and visit us at WMCLive.com for more information about our show and our guests.
You're listening to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan.
My guest for the conversation today is Daisy Kahn, an award-winning speaker, author, activist, commentator, and the founder of Women's Islamic Initiative in Spirituality and Equality, WISE, which is the largest global network of Muslim women committed to peace-building, gender equality, and human dignity. She has been involved in grassroots efforts combating anti-Muslim bias for over 20 years and is renowned as a thought leader on Muslim women's rights. She founded the first global Muslim Women's Shura, the advisory council, to amplify Muslim women's scholarship. And the council uses an egalitarian interpretation of scripture to publish position papers against issues such as child marriage, domestic violence, female genital mutilation, and so forth. Khan is a prolific speaker who has lectured at major institutions like Council on Foreign Relations and Aspen Institute and the World Economic Forum and many others. Her memoir, Born with Wings, published in 2018 by Random House, depicts her spiritual journey as a modern Muslim woman and her circuitous path to leadership. She was listed among Time magazine's top 100 most influential people, and the Huffington Post listed her among top 10 women faith leaders, and More magazine described her as a link between moderate Islam and the West. She's the recipient of many awards and honors, including the Eleanor Roosevelt Human Rights Award. Born in Kashmir, she spent 25 years as an interior architect for various Fortune 500 companies, and in 2005 dedicated herself to full-time community service and building movements for positive change, both in the United States and around the globe. Daisy Khan, welcome back to the program. Marhaba.
Thank you.
It's just wonderful that you're back, and you're back with a blockbuster book. I congratulate you, my dear. Sometimes something comes along that really just knocks me sideways, and this is that book. It's called 30 Rights of Muslim Women, The Definitive Guide by Daisy Khan. The thing is, it really is definitive. This is the compendium of teachings, wisdom, research, and plain good writing that's accessible, that's scholarly to a T. You can trust it utterly, but that isn't hoity-toity academic ease, that's written in good, plain, sturdy English, and is funny, and is accessible, and is draws you along like a novel. It's stories of the Prophet and of Khadijah, who told him who he was, and of Aisha, and stories of Muslim women. It's stories of women today. It's just, I'm sorry if I'm rambling all like this, but I really am very excited about this book. Congratulations, my dear. Congratulations.
Well, this kind of validation that you've just given me makes me feel like all the 4 years that I spent during COVID and, in the last few years, researching and sitting at my desk and being almost invisible to the whole world.
Sure.
This is what I was trying to achieve. I was trying to achieve this like a little treasure. I had picked up all these rubies and diamonds and found this treasure box of books that were strewn all over the world. And I just wanted to put all of this together in one place so that an ordinary person who is struggling with whatever they're struggling with, whether it's a Muslim woman or a person of another woman of faith or a man who's an ally of Muslim women, can say, finally, I have something that helps me, that guides me, that informs me. This is why I wrote this, just to enable people to do what they want to do with it, because everybody is struggling, as you know, with so many things.
Well,
thank you.
Nonsense. I mean, I want to buy copies of this not only for my Muslim women friends, but for non-Muslim women friends, and men, because I want them to understand when they're always saying yes, but why this and why that? Well, why do men can just divorce women with a snap of their fingers? Well, actually, no. I mean, I'd like them to know what the hadiths actually say, what the Quran actually says, what the teachers over the years, not the mullahs, not the ayatollahs, not the men who are after political power and are willing to be excessively cruel, particularly to women, but to do anything to keep that power. This has nothing to do with that. Nothing to do with it. And it is so, you've always been a wonderful mediating voice. I remember, listeners, this woman and I first met over the World Trade Center tragedy, because there was a mosque nearby. Correct me if I'm remembering wrong.
Community center.
A community center mosque, that's right, which of course threw open its doors to everyone to come and use it for any religion that they wanted and use the space. And most beautiful gesture. And people, crazy people, massed in protest of that, and they didn't want it. They wanted it moved. They didn't want it anywhere near the site. They didn't want, it was terrible. It was horrible. It was a horrible thing. And we met because I found her and I asked her to be on the program, and she was this wonderful, sane, rational voice, and still is. And now it's on the page. It is. You've been consistently a translating force and a mediating voice. And whenever I hear people rant and rave on about confusing terrorism with Palestinians or confuse it, whatever it is at the particular moment, the Islamophobia is still alive and very much with us. I always think about you and wanting to spread you like oil on the water.
Thank you. You talk about me coming on your show. That was a very challenging time for me, right? It was something that we were trying to do something good, and it was misconstrued for something completely the opposite.
Right.
And being a challenged community since 9/11, this is why this book came to fruition, because every time I feel that there's a misunderstanding about something, the repercussions of that misunderstanding results in Muslims being, discriminated against and, not only misunderstood, but having real life consequences.
Oh God, yeah.
And the stereotype of Muslim women as being subjugated and oppressed, and that the continuation of that stereotype results in hate crimes here in the United States. But when you look at what is happening overseas, and it affects women and children, and there's no empathy for these women and children. Why? Because somehow in our minds, we have created this feeling that somehow women are subjugated and oppressed, so therefore they're dispensable.
Yeah.
And this is something that we cannot afford to do, because that women are the glue that hold the community together. They're the glue that hold the family together.
That's
and
right.
ultimately the glue that holds the society together, right?
Yep.
Every time there are wars, it's the first people that get impacted by wars are women and children.
Right. Oh, absolutely.
By men, and,
Yeah.
So my way of writing this book is also to call for peace, because in my very first chapter in the book, I'm sure you've already seen, I cite Queen of Sheba as having averted war, right? Because she didn't want to go to war with Solomon, because she knew he was going to finish her off.
That's
because
right.
He had more might.
Right.
And she's like, no, I'm not going to fight a war, because kings, when they come into town, they destroy everything. And so she averted war. Why? For the welfare of her people. So this is also a call for that. Like, let's try and understand what women are doing in their perspective. So the book is not only about Muslim women. It tells the stories from, the biblical stories that actually exist within the Quran as well.
Look, it's a book about women.
Earlier that, you mentioned earlier that, we have to gift this book to men. Yes. And it shows you how God divinely ordained women to be next to a man every time. There was not a single man in all of our traditions who didn't have a woman as a steward or a co-steward, or a woman who was a helper, a woman who was there to teach, to help, to save, to adopt. Without Moses would not have survived without being adopted. And literally taken from the basket. He would have not survived. And I mean, Jesus would not have come into this life had it not been for Mary. Prophet
And
Muhammad would not have had an easy time being a prophet without Khadija.
so why don't
And
they get
Abraham.
Oh, go ahead.
So it's the divine plan to
Yeah.
have a woman next to a man. So how did we go from a woman being a co-steward of man, being there every time, helping and basically on equal footing, to a woman being subjugated or relegated or pushed to the side? So this is what. So I think that women's history has been written out of the history books, and I'm trying to bring it back
God
and
love
saying,
you.
no, we're not. I'm bringing it back, and I'm showing you who these women are.
Yeah, well, bless your heart. I mean, it is true,
Thank you.
and I mean, when we know from archaeological and ethnological scholarship as well that some of that side by sideness was at a hinge point where the matriarchies, the ancient mother worshipping religions, were being overthrown, and there was in some cases a violent overthrow. And Edwina, for example, in the Fertile Crescent, who was a great priestess and was the daughter of the first king to unite entire regions, was the first writer and the first to name herself a writer, which is, I think, incredible. And the first person to ever say, "I wrote this," and so sometimes the attempt to overthrow that was violent and immediate, and then you had this other extreme. So we've been doing extremes back and forth and back and forth and back and forth for a little too long now, and it's killing us. It's killing the planet. So we've got to stop this. I want to go through, if I may, rather quickly, but go through these rights because they are amazing. There's a preface, which is a divine dialogue with women, and an introduction, how to use the book. You can dip into different parts. You can go to the thing that concerns you, or you can read it cover to cover, or you can do both. The Quranic basis for women's equality, and at a glance, 30 rights of Muslim women. Part 1. The right to protection and promotion of mind. A beautiful phrase. The right to civic and political leadership, to secular education, to career pursuit, to freedom of speech and expression, and to testimony and witness. Now, let's just take a few seconds and look at these. The civic and political leadership itself is dynamite. I mean, if that were the case, we would not be having tragic situations like we have in Gaza right now. To secular education, oh my God, because we have princesses in Saudi Arabia who wanted to be scientists and are not permitted to do so, because it's against, quote, the Quran, which it isn't. To career pursuit, we have women all over the place, and certainly Muslim women, who want to have their own careers and independent careers, and that's not permitted. Nor is career pursuit to rise in your career. Freedom of speech and expression, well, that seems to give people troubles in the United States, for that matter. And to testimony and witness, which is absolutely vital, because in certain countries, certainly Afghanistan, and I'm not sure, but I believe in parts of Iran, certainly in the countryside, and in Saudi Arabia, a woman's testimony in court, this is true of the Gulf states as well, carries only half the weight of that of a man. You need two women together to testify, for example, to a rape. What two women are going to be witnessing a rape and then come to testify about it? This is insane. So that's all. That's the opening section. Isn't that dynamite? You'd think the book could end right there and still be dynamite, but no.
And it goes on.
It goes on. Part 2, the right.
So, Robin, each of these came about because of the work I do globally with women.
Of course.
And so, for instance, there has never been any discussion or doubt about education in Islam, because the Quran is full of references to pursuing knowledge, all kinds of knowledge, worldly knowledge, secular and spiritual knowledge as well. But today we have a place called Afghanistan where women are barred from going to school.
That's right.
And universities.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to actually separate out seeking spiritual knowledge from secular knowledge to make the case that, women in the early days were already teaching everybody, and they were involved in astronomy,
That's
and
right.
they were involved in the
Mathematics.
sciences. And so I cite, and mathematics, and I cite women in there to give people an example of how this was happening in 10th, 12th, 13th century. And these were devout women.
Yeah.
And so how is it that we went from that to denying girls today in Afghanistan this education? So each of these have been written because the violation of that right, or taking that sacred right away from women, is happening in some part of the world. It's not consistent, as you know. The challenges of Muslim women are not, are very diverse from country to country. Yeah. Yep. So that's why each of these are arranged this way.
Well, that's a very good arrangement, because it's deeply, deeply necessary and needed. Then comes the right to your religion, to religious and spiritual leadership, to be jurists and interpreters of Islamic texts. I'll come back to this. To gain spiritual knowledge and to access religious spaces. Now, spiritual and religious leadership is so interesting because I remember the great one, Mernesi, and for that matter, Nawal Saadawi. But I especially remember Fatma talking to various mullahs and muftis and saying, and they couldn't cope with her. They didn't know how to, because she was so brilliant. And she would say, well, but no, we actually, you're incorrect. The hadith say, so forth. And they would say, no. And then she would say, no, actually, and she would point to it. So women have not been in many cultures, not only Islam, but we're talking about Islam today. They allowed to be jurists. They didn't sit on juries, in the United States until the 19th century. And they were not allowed to interpret Islamic texts. Well, we all know what happens in interpretation and translation. They weren't allowed to get the knowledge, the spiritual knowledge, and access the religious spaces themselves, and yet they were precluded from doing anything else. So it was a real double whammy. And the idea of religious and spiritual leadership and actually being jurists who would rule on family matters cases like custody, for example, was unheard of, and still is in Afghanistan. It's incredible to me. Then there's the right to your family. And I'm thinking, as I'm reading this, I'm thinking, what a brilliant way of organizing this. And under this one, it's marriage, to be free of forced marriage, to maturely choose marriage. Think what would happen in the West if even non-Muslim women followed this. It would be very good. To accept or refuse a polygamous marriage, to divorce, to family planning and reproductive justice, to care for orphans through adoption, to motherhood and womanhood.
And the reproductive justice, as you know, the Roe versus Wade, the heated conversation we're having in this country right now about that.
Absolutely.
I mean, the Islamic, it will be interesting for people to read what is the Islamic view on that.
Yeah.
Because this interpretation that has now affected Roe versus Wade or reversed it is just one interpretation, one Christian interpretation. It's not even a Christian interpretation that all Christians agree with, right?
That's right.
Let alone Jewish interpretation. And the Muslim interpretation is nowhere to be seen. And yet Muslims have something important to say.
Oh, yeah.
Because our view is very similar to what Roe versus Wade was.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. And that the mother's life is supreme and the fetus is secondary.
Yeah, that's right.
So it makes a very strong case because a mother probably has other children. A mother is a wife. Mother has more the loss of a mother is greater than the loss of a fetus.
Yes.
But of course, it doesn't make a case that you just go and you abort, but it makes a case as to why it would be allowed under what circumstances.
Absolutely. I mean, it is obscene that this is not permitted, and this has become the law. Completely obscene. And that's not even counting Buddhism, other religions. I mean, Buddhism and Zoroastrianism.
I was just talking
and
about the
atheism.
monotheistic faith.
Yeah, just
exactly.
picking big. So,
Right.
okay. Then there's the right to your wealth. I love this one. I have a particular fondness for it because it's funny and it's true. This includes inheritance, and there are anti-woman inheritance laws in place in more countries than I would like to mention. The right to financial independence and equal pay. Oh my God. And the right to own property.
It's ironic, Robin. Yeah. It's ironic that the Quran actually calls for equal pay for men and women.
I know.
It says, pay the people for their labor. It makes no distinction by a man or a woman. Pay them before their sweat dries and pay them equally, So equal pay is part of a Quranic injunction. It's ironic. It's like that's something that's another surprise to people.
Yeah, of course it is. And then we get down to the real nitty-gritty, the right to your life, to freedom of movement, expression of modesty. Freedom, that is, the people have a right not to have their headscarves ripped from them if they choose to wear the hijab. And if they, this is ridiculous. To freedom of movement, to expression of modesty, to freedom from domestic violence, to safeguard against female genital mutilation, which takes place in approximately 15 countries. Many of them majority Muslim population, to protection from rape, sexual assault, and adultery, and to safeguard against child and human trafficking, and to health and hygiene. Those rights, the right to your life, are really basic. They cut to the chase.
The freedom of movement was not a right I was going to include in here, but because of what's happening to Afghan women not being allowed to go out without having a guardian, a husband, or even a young son with them, basically curtailing their movement, not allowing them to move, that has prevented women from doing anything, doing a job,
going to school, anywhere, getting an education,
traveling. And when I was in Afghanistan, I met a woman, and she was almost in tears because she's a teacher, her husband's a teacher, and they have 2 daughters, and her mother lived in a village far away, and she used to go and take care of her sickly mother.
Yeah.
But because her husband had to stay home and take care of his 2 children, she could not travel to see her mother. What kind of injustice is this?
Well,
because she didn't have any guardian to take along with her.
And
I conveyed it to the Taliban. I mentioned this to the Taliban. I said, is she, her primary responsibility is to take care of her mother in her old age.
And what did they say?
This is the illogical.
What did they say?
They just like shocked and stunned because they have not heard these kinds of real life stories.
They're so ignorant too.
This is the problem.
They're so bloody ignorant. I mean, it's incredible. And to health and hygiene is a right as well, because cleanliness is extremely important in Islam. And then the last section is the right to your dignity, to fulfill being a trustee of God on earth. I always want to put in a little parenthesis after that, saying because she would like that. And to freedom from gossip, slander, libel, defamation, and to privacy, and to safeguard honor. And these are very important because in so many cases where the reprobation comes down, where the revenge comes down, is in the community, where a woman's reputation is slandered, and she's, it's like, it's the case of the woman who was stoned to death among the Yahtzee people.
The gang rape. The Pakistani gang rape.
Well,
Mukhtar Ahmad.
That's right. And it's and all it takes is one person looking a little bit sideways and saying, "Well, I don't know. Maybe she was a bad woman. Maybe she slept around. She can be a complete virgin. She cannot have anything to do with anybody anyway. Doesn't matter. They'll stone her." So that the community pressure of any mob is a terrifying aspect. And then it closes with the toolkit and resources and public awareness. I mean, this is extraordinary, these rights. How did you come up with only 30? How did you come up with 30? What did you?
Well, so the other shocking thing that will be that people will not believe, will have a hard time believing, is that these rights are rights that are safeguarded under what we call Sharia law.
Uh-huh.
And Sharia law in the United States has gotten such a dumb rap. Like it sends shiver down people's spines.
That's right.
So I'm like, no, actually, these rights have been arranged because of Islam is a law of has a very sophisticated jurisprudence. Each of these right to protection, promotion, religion, family, these are the guiding objectives of Sharia. So every human being, whether you're a Muslim woman, a Muslim man, any human being living under Sharia law is afforded these rights. So the question was I going to address all of them?
Just like Christianity or Judaism or patriarchal religions in general, the reality and the practice, however, and the interpretation of it remains in patriarchal hands, and so it's very different from what you're stating here.
Yeah. And it also goes back into the little history of when these laws were canonized and for what purpose and who was influencing what at the time, like some of the false hadith that were made up or, sayings of the prophet, or the ruler wanted something different for himself,
Sure.
Just like, remember Bloody Mary and Henry VIII?
Yeah.
Whole new religion because he wanted to marry somebody.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's some of these rulers also canonized laws then became disadvantaged women because they wanted to push women out of the public forum and public scene. And that's why when you read the book, you will see women all over the place. Right after the prophet, during the prophet's time, after his death, women were everywhere as jurists, as influencers, as warriors. And then all of a sudden something happens and women are like nowhere. Where should they go?
It got rolled back.
That's because somebody canonized the laws and then those laws spread. And it was always advantageous to men. So men were like happy. Okay, so we are the king of the road.
Yeah.
That's,
Yeah, and women's way of leading and their strategies and their tactics, for that matter, were nonviolent. You see, so they couldn't, in that sense, compete with male violence. Oh my God! Well, this is an absolute amazement. Are you very proud of yourself? You should be. You should be very proud. I hope that genuine pride, I'm not talking about puffed up and all that, but I mean the genuine pride is permitted in Islam because you deserve it, my dear. You really do.
Thank you. A writer writes the book not knowing how the reader is going to receive it.
Oh, honey, I know that.
Because we're so close to the subject, right? But when the reader comes back and says, I read this, I really found this interesting, or it changed my, perspective, to me, that's what it's all about.
Well,
transforming human hearts.
Have you heard yet from Muslim women? Has there been a reaction? I mean, I know it's new. Is it?
I think it's just so new, but people who are flipping through it are already saying, wow, oh my God, it's sort of like the wow factor. Did not realize that this is what was in it.
Well, it doesn't exist.
It's only been out for 1 week, less than.
Aha. Well, see, but it didn't exist beforehand. So how are they supposed to know?
Yeah.
And when they did say, when Nawal used to say in her village, when she was in cities all over the world receiving awards, it was different. But when she went back to her village, she was just Dr. Nawal, who the villagers knew because sometimes she would come and deliver a baby or set a broken arm or something like that. But when she would talk about hadiths, and well, actually, the Quran said such and so. It didn't say that. They would say, "Oh, Dr. Nawal, you must be wrong." So this is, yeah, this is a deep disease, this patriarchy that goes back a long way, and we've got to engage it finally and once and for always, or keep engaging it, but do so in a definitive way. And these are notes toward ways of doing that. I mean, this takes a vast amount of population in the world, and addresses them directly and says, you have a right to all this amazing, brilliant freedom in so many wonderful ways. And your scholarship also, I mean, is I hope that this is taught in school. I hope that they adopt this as a text in Muslim women.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And to your point, when Muslims would say to Nawal, "Oh, this is not true." This is why I wrote this book, to explicitly show how the Quran provides commandments on women's rights. So everything starts with that, and then how the Prophet was exemplifying that.
Yeah.
How his engagement with women was so deep, constantly. He was teaching women. He was with them. He told a woman, you're better off earning a living with your own hand than relying on some man.
Yes.
This is the Prophet telling her, because she had just been divorced and she was probably begging her husband and he wouldn't give her anything. You're better off go earn a dignified living with your own hand.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, these are the examples, right? But these examples don't exist because they've been, brushed under the rug. And so my job was to bring them out again, because the first authority in Islam is Quran, and second authority is Prophet Muhammad, and then followed by the scholars and the jurists and other people. So that's how the book is arranged, so that you understand the highest authority, and then examples of women who were exemplifying that.
Yeah. I mean, but you see, you took the time, you made the time, and you have the scholarship, and you also have been in such a leadership position for so long among Muslim women, and in fact, a leadership for and by Muslim women to the rest of the world, that you had access to women all over the world. And in other words, you are the perfect person to do this. If it were not a Muslim woman, she doesn't really have the right, and she wouldn't have the expertise. If I mean, you are ideally positioned to do this work, and you've done it superbly. You've just done it superbly. So, I mean, hats off to you, my dear. My dear friend. I mean, chapeau. This is really superb work. I hope it wins lots of prizes, and I hope it sells like a best bloody seller. And I'll do my part by buying lots of copies. And so now the book is called 30 Rights of Muslim Women, the definitive guide, and it really is.
We actually changed that. I just want you to know we changed it to a trusted guide.
A trusted guide. Well,
you're right. A trusted guide, because it's from a trusted source.
I see.
So we want to make sure that people. But that's just
well,
the tagline was shifted at the last
to me, it's the definitive guide.
I know.
Hell with that.
We were going back and forth between the two. Yeah.
Yeah. Is it going to be in paperback? Is it going to what it sells on Amazon?
It's actually it's a paperback, and there's a reason for that. I'll be able to carry it easily. So it's soft. You can flip through it. You can roll it up. Paperbacks are friendly. So yes, it is on Amazon. It's also an ebook. It's available everywhere: Walmart, Barnes and Noble, all the bookstores, libraries. Order it from your library. I tell people, because the easiest way to get it is to get your library to order it for you.
Well,
so yeah, it is available,
and
it's not. It is on Kindle, but it's not an audiobook yet. So that's the only thing that is not.
Well, I mean, I will not get mine on Kindle, because want to mark it up and have lots of marginalia with exclamation points saying, yes, 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 yes.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm encouraging women of faith to do book clubs, to discuss a topic, because like you said, the book is arranged in such a way that people can hone in on a particular subject. They don't have to read. It's not the kind of book that you need to read cover to cover. Go to the topic. If it's reproductive rights, if it's slander, if it's whatever it is, let's have a discussion about this topic. And it could be a great thing for book clubs.
I'm so proud to know you, my dear. I really, really am.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
I just think this is wonderful. So, dear Daisy, congratulations on 30 Rights of Muslim Women. What are you going to write next? Or are you taking a break and breathing? Maybe you're going to write the other book.
There is no break now. Now is the tour. So I'm happy to come to anybody online, any group. I'll do online readings. Yeah, because, travel is expensive and it's hard. So, and now we can reach people through online forums. So we can do that as well.
That's wonderful. Do you have a website? Is there a place where they can contact you?
Yes. It's Daisy at daisycon.com.
Oh, okay. And spell con for them so they know whether it's KH.
Yeah. KHAN.com or info at daisycon.com.
Wonderful. All right, darling. Congratulations, and let us not wait another however many years to have a meeting again. My God, but this is just remarkable. It goes in my special bookshelf with the basics, the necessary.
Thank you.
The necessary ones. All right. Much love to you, and much admiration, and much celebration.
Thank you so much, Robin. And thank you for your audience for listening.
It's time for another break, but I'll return directly, and it will be with some fighting words. The Women's Media Center, founded in 2005 by Jane Fonda, Gloria Steinem, and myself, is a progressive, nonpartisan, nonprofit organization working to make women visible and powerful in media. You can learn more about the WMC at womensmediacenter.com.
You're listening to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan.
The 19th century British poet, Wordsworth, titled a poem Surprised by Joy, and a bit later in the 20th century, C.S. Lewis, a lovely British author, titled a book Surprised by Joy. I think those are fighting words. I think this for a number of reasons, not least among them that joy is always a surprise, a soul-warming state of being, a deliciousness exuberantly detached from its immediate source, yet inextricably connected to it. This past week and a half or two, for example, its source has been a robin's nest in my garden. Those of you who are regular listeners may remember that last year around this time I was celebrating the birth of a robin fledgling learning to fly right around the time of the Gay Pride March. This year, to my awe, there's a nest built by the female and ministered to by both the female and the male adults. There were 4 eggs in it to begin with, and frankly, I've been too scared to come very near enough to peek, afraid of disturbing the robins to see if the number of eggs has changed. But I know that those eggs are that heart-stoppingly exquisite robin's egg blue. For over a week now, And remember that we only discovered the nest about 2 weeks ago. The parents have been taking turns sitting on the nest. The male pulls equal duty times, then flying off and returning with a tasty worm or two to stuff down baby gullets. Tiny, wobbly heads, almost translucent in their pink fleshiness, rear themselves, gaping mouths yawning upward for the worms. This ritual is performed many times a day, even when the mother and father have gone for a short period to find and bring more food. You can see them perched in a nearby tree, one bright eye fixed protectively back on the nest. That's a great relief, because there are red-tailed hawks sometimes seen in the neighborhood. These powerful, large, majestic creatures have been seen to snap a pigeon mid-air for lunch. They then deck the garden with feathers and bits of blood sacrifice. You can't intervene sentimentally. You have to permit life to take its course, even in your otherwise gentrified garden. When the almost continuous birdsong goes quiet in the garden, it likely means that somebody may have spotted a hawk. But when singing returns, it's all clear. Yet where the robins are concerned, I get very protective, and I'm grateful for their vigilance. Surprised by this joy as I am, surprised by this joy as visitors to my garden are, I cannot wait for the flight training to begin. I go out early in the morning, just as it's beginning to be light, clutching my mug of coffee, and I ensconce myself with my binoculars to watch. When one of the parents lands on the nest, she or he leans down from the edge and dangles the worm or other insect, and the little maws gape up to snap it down. Then the parent very gently steps on them and sort of shimmies in, settling down for a sit. I've by now read quite a bit about the American robin, so utterly flabbergasted, thrilled, and somehow flattered that, given my name and of all birds, it's robins who are nesting in my garden. The Audubon Society tells me that robins are quite friendly to humans and can even recognize some of us if we appear regularly. And indeed, nothing now disturbs them, not even humans having lunch at a very nearby table or calling to one another across the garden. That my facial expressions, my voice, my gestures might have become familiar to such wild creatures leaves me breathless. It's such an honor. When the male was inspecting his property back while the female was building her nest, he almost dive-bombed me once, but when I neither ducked nor attacked, he must have decided I was acceptable. He has a much deeper red breast than she. Her colorations are russet and brown. And he has a very impressive posture. Not a small bird at all. He hopped every inch of the garden, as well as flying them all, making it clear that this was his and her garden now. Robins practice seasonal monogamy, according to Audubon. He conveyed the essence of masculinity, yet he does a full half of the child care. I put out a few crushed nuts and blueberries and raspberries, which Audubon says is okay, although so far the parents have mostly been keeping to live food. The babies' upstretched heads are beginning to turn dark with feathers. I am in bliss. So while Europe turns rightward and Gaza still bleeds, yet I am surprised by joy, because there is a clutch of robins nested in my garden, and I will keep that fragile joy alive as long as humanly possible. And that's our show for this week. You can follow me on social media at The Robin Morgan. You can check out my blog at robinmorgan.net, and you can find my new novel, Parallax, and my just-out new book of poems, Harvesting Darkness, wherever books are sold. Portions of this program were taped earlier. Views expressed here do not necessarily represent the WMC. Here's the family for Women's Media Center Live. Executive producer, as well as founding and sustaining sponsor, Regina K. Scully. WMC president and co-executive producer for this program, Julie Burton. I'm Robin Morgan, your producer and host. Thank you for being with us. Join us next time on Women's Media Center Live.